Keep Up Alive here. We have a 2014 Honda Accord Sport. I just put Teen Street Basics coilovers on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk through a little bit about what you need for tools and how you're going to do this. From a tool standpoint, for the most part, you have 19 millimeter to take the tires off, and then everything else you're going to work with is going to be either 17 millimeter or 14 millimeter. Having box end wrenches is great, obviously, and then ratcheting wrenches are going to make your job a little bit easier. And then you're going to have a variety of sockets. I use a electronic battery powered impact for most of my work. However, you're going to need a little bit of leverage, so a good breaker bar is going to be important. Because of the way the struts have the lower control arm and the sway bar linkage, you're going to have some sort of a tool that allows a through hole, because essentially what you got to do is you have to work one of these Allen wrenches through the socket to get to the bolt. And I'll show you exactly which bolt I'm talking about. Is that one there, and I don't have it tightened yet because I'm finishing this install, but that's the bolt there that you can see there's a hex on the inside. Same is true for the factory damper bolts. The bolts that are on top of the factory dampers, those also have that same piece. So in order to do the fronts, what you're going to want to do is first you got to get that worked loose. It's going to take a little bit of time. You got to be patient. You're going to want to clean the threads and lube it up. Next, you need to drop this whole assembly. It's held on top with 3 bolts. These are all 14 millimeter after you take the upper control arm off. But you're going to take these off last. What you're going to want to do first is you need to drop this whole knuckle, this whole assembly down. So the lower control arm is held with 2 bolts there, and then on this side of the lower control arm mount, there's a couple bolts. There's one there, and there's 2 more underneath there. Once you take those bolts out, they're all 14 millimeter. That allows this whole hub assembly to drop. You're going to want to disconnect your brake line. This either speed control sense or ABS disconnects there and there, because this actually it's mounted here. Then you're going to have to work a pry bar in once you take this bolt off. There's a 17 millimeter bolt here, and that bolt is what kind of tightens this whole knuckle to this upper strut. So order of operation, loosen this, get that out of there. Once that's out of your way, it pops and kind of sits free. Disconnect all of the cables and the brackets. Undo the lower control arm. That's going to allow this whole knuckle to drop down. Now you're going to have to be careful. You're going to have to put some blocks underneath it, or a jack stand, or some sort of a jack, because you don't want this to pull out. Remember, this is your spline that drives the wheel, so that can slide out. Then that's going to make your job harder having to put that back in. So the fronts are pretty straightforward. Once you drop that, then you have those 4 bolts. The whole coilover assembly pulls out. Use your spring compressor or decompress the factory strut. These don't have an upper mount. They reuse the factory mounts. Overall, it really was a pain, and it took a long time. But there weren't any instructions online, so kind of had to figure it out myself. So I'm sharing it with you. So the rear's a lot more straightforward. You essentially have 1 bolt that goes through here. Once you take that bolt out, this whole assembly is going to be able to drop loose. Now, I typically end up having to put my foot on it, on the studs here, and push down while I'm trying to break it free. So on the upper mount, you have 2 bolts here. Take those 2 bolts out, the whole strut assembly drops out, and then you'll have your factory strut that you'll be able to disassemble. Now, I did pull the rear deck out. Now I pull that out, it's pretty straightforward. You have your side seat bolster here. Get 1 10 millimeter bolt that goes in down there. Take your C-pillars off, they pop off with clips. Remove your rear deck, it just pops off. Lift up till it's free, and then you got 1 clip you got to do there. So once you've done that, since these actually add a little bit of lowering, there is a pin that's in the factory strut top mount. That pin, you basically just throw a nut on it, one of these nuts, 14 millimeters, wrench it down, pops it loose, pop it out, and that's going to give you a little bit of camber adjustment that's beyond what the factory does. And that's pretty much all there is to it. It's going to take you several hours once you get started. The factory struts were fine, dampers were fine. It's 2014 Honda Accord Sport, has 85,000 miles on it. I was struggling with a rear camber issue though. So to deal with the rear camber issue, I bought a set of 3 adjustable link arms. I've been on the car for a while. There's one, here's another, and then there's a third right there. So what these do is these give me more toe and camber adjustment for the rear. I was trying to keep the tires as straight as possible. And this gives you about 3 degrees of camber adjustment to straighten it back out. As a reference, the factory rear brakes are still pretty good. There's still pad left. I do have replacement pad and rotors. I had a problem with the factory front rotors where the pad actually disintegrated, so I bought aftermarket, and they've been on the car for 60,000 miles. I still have plenty of pad left. They're wearing easily. It brakes really well. For the most part, the car's been pretty good, but I was trying to change a little bit of the stance, and I figured at 85,000 miles, I might as well replace the dampers. So if you got any questions, feel free to just get a hold of me. Keep Hope Alive and audio forums and Honda forums. Have a good day.